In the heart of Atlanta's bustling business district, a sleek black SUV pulled into the lot of Prestige Motors, a high-end car dealership known for its luxury vehicles and elite clientele. The woman behind the wheel, Dr. Vanessa Carter, adjusted her sunglasses and stepped out, her tailored blazer and heels exuding confidence. She wasn't just any customer. She was the CEO of Carter Enterprises, a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate with stakes in tech, real estate, and automotive industries. But the dealership's manager, Greg Harlan, saw only a black woman in his showroom, and that was enough for him to make assumptions that would cost him dearly. Vanessa had built her empire from the ground up. Born in a working-class neighborhood in Chicago, she'd clawed her way through systemic barriers, earning a PhD in business administration and turning a small tech startup into a global powerhouse. At 42, she was a force, sharp, strategic, and unflappable. Her company's portfolio included a silent but significant stake in Prestige Motors' parent company, a detail she kept private, even from her closest associates. She preferred to move quietly, letting her actions speak louder than her title. That morning, Vanessa had come to Prestige Motors for a simple reason: to test drive a limited edition Aston Martin DBX, a vehicle she'd had her eye on for months. She wasn't there to flaunt her wealth or status. She just wanted the car. Her assistant had called ahead to arrange the visit, but Vanessa, as was her habit, arrived unannounced, preferring to experience the dealership as any customer would. She believed in assessing businesses firsthand, especially those tied to her investments. As she walked through the glass doors, the showroom gleamed with polished cars and bright lights. Salespeople buzzed around, catering to a handful of customers, mostly men in suits. Vanessa's presence drew a few glances, but none lingered long enough to be welcoming. She approached a young salesman who was polishing a Bentley's hood. "Excuse me," Vanessa said, her voice calm but commanding. "I'm here to test drive the Aston Martin DBX. I believe my assistant called earlier." The salesman, a lanky kid named Tyler, looked her up and down, hesitating. The DBX? That's a high-end model, ma'am. Let me get my manager." His tone wasn't rude, but it carried a hint of skepticism that Vanessa recognized all too well. She nodded, unfazed, and waited. Moments later, Greg Harlan strode over. In his late 50s, with a slick comb-over and a cheap suit that strained at the buttons, Greg carried himself with the arrogance of a man who thought he owned the room. He'd been managing Prestige Motors for a decade, and in his mind, he could spot a serious buyer from a mile away. Vanessa, in his estimation, didn't fit the profile. "Can I help you?" Greg asked, his smile thin and perfunctory. He didn't extend a hand or introduce himself. "Yes," Vanessa replied, matching his tone with cool professionalism. "I'm here for the Aston Martin DBX. I'd like to test drive it." Greg's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning her from head to toe. "The DBX, huh? That's a $200,000 vehicle. We don't just let anyone take it for a spin. Do you have an appointment?" Vanessa's jaw tightened, but her expression remained neutral. "My assistant made arrangements this morning. I'm sure it's in your system." Greg crossed his arms, his smile fading. "Look, ma'am, I don't know what your assistant told you, but we have a process here. That car's reserved for serious buyers. Maybe you'd be more comfortable looking at something in our pre-owned section." The air in the showroom seemed to thicken. Tyler, still lingering nearby, shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. Vanessa tilted her head slightly, her eyes locking onto Greg's. "I'm not interested in pre-owned. I want the DBX. Can you make that happen, or should I speak to someone else?" Greg's face reddened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone he'd already dismissed in his mind. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice but not his condescension, "this isn't a joyride service. If you can't show me you're serious, maybe some proof of funds or a credit pre-approval, I can't waste my time." Vanessa's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. She'd faced this kind of gatekeeping her entire career, men like Greg, who saw her skin color and gender before anything else, assuming she didn't belong. She could have pulled out her black Amex card or mentioned her company's name, but she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she leaned in slightly, her voice steady. I see. And you're the manager, I presume? That's right, Greg said, puffing out his chest. Greg Harlan. I run this place. Noted, Vanessa said simply. I'll wait while you check on that appointment. Greg scoffed, turning to Tyler. Get her name and run it through the system. If there's no appointment, she's out. He walked off toward his office, muttering something about people wasting his time. Tyler, visibly embarrassed, apologized under his breath as he took Vanessa's name. I'm sorry about him. He's particular. Let me check the system. He typed quickly, his eyes widening as he pulled up the appointment. Yeah, here it is. Dr. Vanessa Carter, test drive for the DBX, booked at 10 a.m. I'll let him know. Vanessa nodded, her expression unreadable. Thank you, Tyler. But before Tyler could relay the information, Greg returned, his face set in a scowl. You know what? He said, cutting Tyler off. I don't care what's in the system. I'm not putting a $200,000 car in the hands of someone who might not even qualify for a lease. You need to leave. Now. The showroom went quiet. A few customers and salespeople turned to watch, sensing the confrontation. Vanessa didn't flinch. She stood her ground, her voice calm but laced with steel. You're asking me to leave because you don't think I can afford the car. Is that correct? Greg smirked, emboldened by the attention. I'm saying we have standards here. And you're not meeting them. Let's not make a scene. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, but she didn't raise her voice. A scene? No, I don't make scenes. But you're making a mistake, Greg. A big one. Greg laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. Lady, the only mistake here is you thinking you can walk in and demand a test drive without proving you belong. Security. Before Vanessa could respond, 2 security guards approached, their expressions apologetic but firm. Ma'am, please come with us, one said, gesturing toward the door. Vanessa didn't move. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number. This is Dr. Carter, she said into the phone, her voice calm but deliberate. I need you to pull up the ownership records for Prestige Motors and connect me to the board chair. Now. Greg's smirk faltered, but he doubled down. Oh, please. You're calling someone? What? Your lawyer. Save it. You're out of here. The security guards hesitated, sensing something was off. Vanessa ignored Greg, speaking into the phone. Yes, I'm at the dealership now. I'd like you to confirm my position with the parent company and inform Mr. Harlan of his error. Immediately. Greg's face went from red to pale. What are you talking about? Parent company? Who are you? Vanessa ended the call and slipped the phone back into her purse. You'll find out soon enough, she said, her tone icy. She turned to the security guards. Gentlemen, I suggest you step back. This is about to get interesting. Within minutes, Greg's phone buzzed. He answered it, his bravado crumbling as the voice on the other end spoke. The color drained from his face entirely. What? No, that can't be right. She's just a... He stopped, listening, his eyes darting to Vanessa, who stood with her arms crossed, waiting. The call ended, and Greg stared at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You're Dr. Vanessa Carter? The Carter Enterprises Vanessa Carter? That's right, she said, her voice steady. And you just kicked the majority shareholder of your parent company out of your dealership. Greg stammered, trying to backtrack. I didn't know. I didn't mean to. Look, this is a misunderstanding. Let's start over. I'll get the DBX ready right now. Vanessa raised a hand, silencing him. No, Greg. You don't get to start over. You made your decision based on what you saw, or what you thought you saw. And now you'll face the consequences. She turned to Tyler, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Tyler, you've been professional. Get the car ready. I'll be taking that test drive. Tyler nodded eagerly and rushed off. Vanessa turned back to Greg, who was sweating profusely. As for you, she said, I'll be speaking with the board about your leadership. I suggest you start thinking about how you're going to explain this. The showroom buzzed with whispers as Vanessa walked toward the DBX, now being prepped by Tyler. Customers and staff alike watched her, some with admiration, others with shock. Greg stood frozen, realizing too late that he'd underestimated the wrong woman. Vanessa slid into the driver's seat of the Aston Martin, the leather interior molding to her frame. She adjusted the mirrors, her movements deliberate and calm. Tyler handed her the keys, his voice low. "I'm really sorry about all this, Dr. Carter. I didn't know who you were." She offered him a small smile. "You did your job, Tyler. That's more than I can say for your boss." As she pulled out of the lot, the engine purring under her command, Vanessa felt a familiar surge of determination. This wasn't just about a car or a dealership. It was about respect, something she'd fought for her entire life. Greg Harlan's mistake would be a costly one, but for Vanessa, it was just another day of proving she belonged. By the end of the week, the board of Prestige Motors' parent company convened an emergency meeting. Vanessa attended via video call, her presence commanding even through a screen. Greg's actions were laid bare, supported by security footage and witness statements from the showroom staff. The board's decision was unanimous. Greg Harlan was terminated, effective immediately. Vanessa didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She'd already moved on, focusing on her next acquisition. But the story of the black CEO who turned the tables on a prejudiced manager spread like wildfire, inspiring countless others to stand their ground. For Vanessa, it was just another chapter in her relentless pursuit of excellence, and a reminder that no one could dim her light, no matter how hard they tried.